Hi there and welcome to Module 1I of my Python full course. If you have not enrolled already, please subscribe to the channel and let's get started. So last time we talked about the idea of a while loop where we said, okay, a is equal to 0 and then while a is less than 3, do stuff in here. And we increased a by 1 each time so that we didn't just do some infinitely long loop. It is a finite loop now. It goes 3 times because I got a up a couple times until a was actually equal to 3, so this was no longer true. Now, what I said was what you might guess if you hadn't seen while before is that it would have the behavior of just maybe or maybe not doing this thing here, not a matter of looping over any content. What we're going to do here is that actual exact idea, where you can say, I'm actually going to copy that code here and say, okay, while a is less than 3, do this. No, I'm not going to increment a anymore. I am just going to say, if a is less than 3, then do this thing. So a is 0. If a is less than 3, do this. Notice there's no infinite loop. There's no loop of any kind. It is just saying a is equal to 0. Is a less than 3? Well, no, it's not. And therefore, we want to print the list of 1, 2, 3 sub a, which is going to be that first result right there. So that is the idea of an if statement. Now that by itself is extremely useful, but you can also do something where maybe you want to do this or you want to do this based off of this condition. So if this is true, then do that. But if it's not true, maybe you want to do something else. Maybe we want to just print a is not less than 3. Sorry about that. Print a is not less than 3. Okay, so a is 0, so this still works. Set maybe a equal to 1, well, it's going to be printing that value. A is equal to 2, well, it's still less than 3, so it's still going in here. But wait, if a is equal to 3, it's asking if a is less than 3. No, it is not. So else we want to say a is not less than 3. So if we want to do this, then do this. If we don't, then do this. It is all based off of this condition, whether it is true or false. And very briefly, I will show you that what it's doing is evaluating, and it's the same as in the for loop, and not in the for loop, it is the same as in the while loop. It is checking this conditional thing, which is actually just a Boolean expression, meaning it is going to be something that evaluates to either true or false. In fact, sorry about that, there's no reason, although you probably don't want to write code like this, if true, then, sorry, that's going to break it because that's no longer good. A is equal to 2, and then if true, well, true is true, so I want to do this. If false, well, false is false, so it must be going to the else instead. So it's going to say a is not less than 3, and that's not really relevant anymore, but that's the idea. It's evaluating to a Boolean whether it's true or false. This idea, and let me just go back to what it was before with Control Z a couple times, and that works. So down here, we're saying a is less than 4, for example. Well, that is true. But the type of this thing is bool. Okay, that's why we care about that idea of Booleans, whether it is or is not something, because a lot of the time we either do want to loop or we don't want to loop anymore, or we do want to run this code or we don't want to run this code. If you're talking about it just once, that's saying an if statement. And if you're talking about doing your loop in the other one, we're saying, okay, check this condition. If it's true, then run this code, and then keep checking that until it is false, and then give up and print done after. So one last thing before we go off, there is actually this idea called else if, where it's basically checking multiple things. So if a is less than 3, then do this. Otherwise, if a is maybe less than 2, then say print, and let me just make this a little more clear at this point. We'll print a is less than 3. Okay, if it's running that code, that means that this evaluated true, so a must be less than 3. If it's evaluating this, then it must be true that a is less than 2. So we'll let it print a is less than 2. Otherwise, a is not less than 2, a is not less than 3, and it is not less than 2. Because that means that this evaluated to false, meaning a is not less than 3, this evaluated to false, meaning a is not less than 2, and therefore a must not be less than 3, and it is not less than 2. So let's set a equal to 3 here. We have a is not less than 3 and is not less than 2. That is true. A equals 4 is the same thing, but then a equals 2 should be this thing, because a is 2, therefore it is less than 3, a is less than 3. But if a is equal to 1, well, notice the order of this thing is extremely important, because yes, a is less than 2. So technically, this statement itself is a true statement, but this condition, although it would be true, it is not even ever checked, because what it's doing is saying a is less than 3. Well, yes, 1 is less than 3, and so that's what we're going to output. We're saying which one actually first evaluates to true, then we're going to do that specific thing. All right, so if I switch the order of this, maybe I set if a is less than 2, or if a is, let's say, greater than 4. All right, so a is less than 2. We'll change that statement. A is greater than 4. Well, a is less than 2. A is less than 2. A is not less than 2, and it is not greater than 4. That must be true at this point. So if we set a equal to 1, well, we should run that and see a is less than 2. A is less than 2, print a is less than 2, good to go. If a is maybe 3, well, that's the last one. So a was not less than 2, a was not greater than 4, so it printed the last one. If a is equal to 4, it should be the same thing. But if a is equal to 5, then it first checks that thing, and that was going to be evaluated false. And then it tries checking this thing, so this is going to evaluate to true. So it is not going to do this else thing. It is going to do that second thing. A is greater than 4. And that is if statements. If elif statements, it's actually the word elif you'll notice instead of else if. Doesn't really matter, that's just what the code is. And that is the conditional flow. So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next module part.